On September 25, 1933, a brilliant physicist walked into a waiting room in Amsterdam. His name was Paul Ehrenfest. There, his son Vasek, who had Down syndrome, was being cared for. In a shocking and unfathomable act, Ehrenfest ended his own son's life, and then his own. It was an event that cast a dark shadow over an extraordinary career. Albert Einstein himself once said of him, "He was the best teacher in our profession whom I have ever known." This is the story of Paul Ehrenfest, Einstein's closest friend, one of the sharpest scientific minds of the 20th century, and perhaps the most tragic scientist in history. Paul Ehrenfest was born on January 18, 1880, in Vienna. His parents were Jewish immigrants from Moravia. His father, originally a weaver, had worked his way into becoming a grocer. Paul was the youngest of 5 boys. Childhood was not kind to him. His mother died of breast cancer when he was only 10 years old. 6 years later, his father also passed away from stomach ulcers. Orphaned as a teenager, Paul found himself surrounded by loneliness. Yet, in this loneliness, he discovered a companion that would never leave him: science. At school, he struggled with traditional learning, but he fell in love with mathematics and physics. He attended the famous lectures of physicist Ludwig Boltzmann in Vienna. These lectures ignited a fire that shaped his destiny. Ehrenfest began his studies in chemistry at the Technical University of Vienna, but quickly shifted to Göttingen, Germany, the beating heart of European science at the time. Göttingen was buzzing with mathematicians, physicists, and intellectual debates. It was there that he met Tatyana Afanasieva, a Russian mathematics student. Paul was curious why she never came to the mathematics club. The reason? Women weren't allowed. Outraged, Paul fought for her right to join and succeeded. That was the beginning of a partnership that went beyond science. But love was not simple. Paul was Jewish, Tatyana was Russian Orthodox, and Austrian law forbade mixed marriages. Their solution? They both renounced their religions and married in 1904. It was a bold act of love and defiance. Together, they formed one of the most intellectually powerful couples of their time. Paul earned his doctorate under Boltzmann, but his career was not an easy climb. He wasn't a prolific writer of research papers. Instead, his strength lay in explaining, questioning, and teaching. He had a gift. He could take the most complex problems and make them understandable. Students adored him. Einstein would later praise him as the best teacher in our profession. But behind the brilliance, Ehrenfest carried heavy shadows: self-doubt, depression, and an overwhelming sense of inadequacy. Still, he pressed on. He and Tatyana co-authored papers on statistical mechanics. Slowly, his reputation grew. In 1912, Paul's life took a dramatic turn. He was appointed as a professor of theoretical physics at Leiden University in the Netherlands. It was here that his friendship with Albert Einstein blossomed. The two men connected not only through physics, but also through their shared humanity. Ehrenfest's warmth, humor, and kindness created a deep bond. Einstein would often stay with the Ehrenfest family during his travels, and the two would spend long nights walking, debating relativity, quantum theory, and the meaning of life itself. Einstein trusted Ehrenfest more than most. He once wrote, "Among all my colleagues, Ehrenfest is the one I miss most." To Einstein, Paul wasn't just a friend. He was a brother. While Ehrenfest's career flourished in Leiden, his inner struggles deepened. He was surrounded by some of the greatest minds in history: Einstein, Bohr, Planck, Schrödinger. But instead of feeling pride, Paul often felt he didn't measure up. He published less than his peers, and his depression made him believe he had failed as a scientist. At home, life was also challenging. His son Vasek, born with Down syndrome, required special care. Paul loved him deeply, but in an era with little understanding of developmental disorders, Paul worried endlessly about Vasek's future. His mind was a storm, genius on one side, despair on the other. By the early 1930s, the world was crumbling. The Great Depression brought economic hardship, and Adolf Hitler's rise in Germany cast a terrifying shadow over Europe, especially for Jewish intellectuals like Ehrenfest. Paul grew increasingly overwhelmed. He felt exhausted, broken, and unable to see hope. On September 25, 1933, he made a decision that shocked the world. He entered the waiting room of the Institute in Amsterdam, where his beloved son Vasek was being cared for. In an act that remains incomprehensible, Paul ended his son's life and then took his own. He was only 53 years old. Einstein was devastated. He called Ehrenfest the best teacher I have ever known. But more than that, he mourned the loss of a dear friend. Einstein once wrote, "I found in him a kindred spirit, with the same sensitivity and the same struggle. His death left a hole in my life that can never be filled." Paul Ehrenfest may not be remembered with the same fame as Einstein or Heisenberg, but his impact was profound. He shaped the next generation of physicists with his teaching. He played a key role in spreading Einstein's theory of relativity. He fought for equality in science, opening doors for women like Tatiana, and he remains a symbol of the struggles scientists face, not only in their research but within their own minds. Ehrenfest's life reminds us that brilliance and fragility often walk hand in hand. Paul Ehrenfest's story is not just about tragedy. It is about love, friendship, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge, even while carrying unbearable burdens. He was a teacher, a father, Einstein's closest friend, and a man who showed us that behind every genius, there is a human story, filled with dreams, doubts, and vulnerabilities. So, the next time you hear Einstein's name, remember to the man he loved and respected most, Paul Ehrenfest. Because sometimes, the brightest stars burn quietly and tragically